Hello, everybody. Thank you for returning to our YouTube channel. And again, I am Brian. My co-host here is Matthew Creedican, a former Navy SEAL. Um, and again, we're part of an organization called Technology United for Ukraine. We bring innovative technologies to the civilian population and military in Ukraine. So please, if you'd like to join us, if you're an engineer or scientist, you believe you can help in that level, the link is in the description. That takes you to our website. You can join, or anybody who thinks they can help. If you think you can do anything for us or you want to donate, just go there. All right, with no further ado, let's get into the topic today. Matthew, what I want to talk about is the oil refineries, the oil depots, whatever they're blowing up all over Russia. How is that impacting the Russian strategy?
Yeah, I mean those are big impacts because it's what we call really high battlefield return on investment type targets. So whatever they're flying through there, I'm not gonna go into detail, but whether they're hitting them with relatively low cost, and it creates so that's their refined fuels that they use in their boats, vehicles. So when you hit that, it slows down all their local operations and it puts an additional kind of tax on all their systems because now they have to relocate those supply depots, and figure out how they can store it in large quantities efficiently and still hide it. So it either forces them to push it way back, which adds much longer supply chain, or forces them to organize, uh, which just puts a lot of stress on them, especially being kind of a top-down type military. It just makes it much harder. So, that's that. And I think there's some distinctions to be made. There's the refined fuels that you use. There's the refineries that refine the fuels, which those are things that are going directly to Russia and directly affect Russia. And then there's the actual production of the oil, like pumping it. Uh, and the pumping it is probably the part that you won't probably see things being hit because that, even though it reduces the amount of oil coming out of Russia, it reduces the amount of oil going into the world, and that just drives the price of oil up potentially. So you don't necessarily take money out of the Russians' pockets, but you disturb potential, on the fence, quote unquote, allies because now they have to pay more for oil. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how the Ukrainians play that here, because that would be obviously the soft underbelly, being like the vast majority of the funding that Russia uses. Um,
So tell me something there, and I was curious, I'd asked you before, why aren't there air defense all around these oil depots? Are they running out of it? Is this a major issue now that Russia's having to put all these air defense in Ukraine itself? Like, what's going on with their ability to protect them?
yeah, you just have such a massive amount of things to defend. There's just a square area to defend. Uh, once you get past the front lines, you just don't have enough systems, and you don't have necessarily enough sensors either. So depending on what altitude and the configuration of these strikes and when they're coming in and how they're coming in, even if you had air defense, it may not even be detected. So it's quite the endeavor to try to protect like vast swaths of terrain, and the enemy basically gets to decide when and where to attack. So it's a very very difficult thing to do, and this won't be just a Russia problem. It'll likely be a world problem because this is a this is a new type of warfare. There's a huge asymmetry now. The attacking systems, they're very low cost and accurate, and they're commodity systems, right? It's things made in large quantities at low cost, um, and so this is just the beginning of low cost systems. So huge advantage to the attackers, to the aggressors. Uh,
Mm,
that'll
interesting. So
that'll
you
I,
talk about
but
they
that'll
could
continue.
overload a system. Is that what you're saying? If you just send all this low cost stuff in, it just too much stuff to track at one time
Right,
if it's sent in.
right. Yeah, you send things in large quantities. They
Mm,
either don't like the current capabilities for defense. Like you look at the missile systems, they're
mm,
just they're highly expensive versus the thing they're sending, and even if you had the money, like, if you look at the American Patriot systems, even if you had the money to build a lot of Patriots, the infrastructure is not necessarily there to build a lot of Patriot missiles. So they are expensive, and I don't think anyone wants to spend the money on that. But all sides right now, I think, give it another 6 months, a year, you'll start to see more and more lower cost interceptors. But even then, the advantage still goes to the attacker, because he can basically decide how to mass and where to mass his systems, versus the defender having to mass his defense at every point. So,
Hmm.
there's, we can get into a long discussion about, the cat and mouse game, and the how to take on these kind of coming mass drone swarm systems.
Interesting. Yeah, so I guess we're kind of seeing that come the reality with the way the Ukrainians are able to get these slow drones in there, and we don't see any MiGs showing up to take them down. We don't see any of their air-to-air missiles, like nothing. These things are just going, and populations are filming them and saying, "Look, here's a drone coming in, brr, like this thing isn't going, 1,000 miles an hour. It's probably doing what, 300, maybe 250. Like, I don't even know how fast those things go, but they're getting how many miles in are they reaching? I think, is it 1,000? What's the some
Oh,
of these oil depots and
yeah,
refineries?
I mean, again, I'm not gonna go into details on, like, necessarily what and how they're doing it. But yeah, let's just say you'll probably start seeing more and more things go much, much farther, and it won't be at a high cost.
Yeah, and I know you've talked about that in the past. Is cost is paramount in this war. With the ability to, they talk a lot about scalability. You have to be scalable and affordable. The products that they're putting out on the battlefield.
Yeah, yeah, and that's I think depending on which news you watch, some people think the Ukrainians, they have a fighting chance for sure. But the Ukrainians are in a pickle, because the better and more they fight, the more likely it is that the Allies won't give them more money. Um, so there's speculation as to, like, how they make the fight look so that they can maximize the money. But if they don't fight well enough, then they lose stuff. Um, so it's kind of an issue for them. Uh, but it's quite dangerous, because you don't know what who's allying with who. And, like, it looks like in some cases the Chinese are potentially becoming more and more aligned with the Russians, and you got the North Koreans, um, and the Chinese being a manufacturing powerhouse. That, coupled with this coming, like, uh, AI vision systems, machine vision, targeting, navigation, like that avoids the vast majority of EW, electronic warfare systems.
Mm.
Um, and when that shows up, which you'll start to see in the coming months, you'll start to see many, many more drones that are doing basic target lock systems, to appear full on navigation. Uh, the face of warfare will, we know it's coming. It's just, you'll see it. And if, one side you might think's winning, everything could change tomorrow when they launch 10,000 drones at once, all self-targeting. And that's
Mhm.
all doing. Like, you look at China, DJI, I would say bare minimum, they're making 15,000 drones a day. Uh,
Mhm. And they could
even
probably
possibly,
scale that up if they had to,
even possibly up to
easily.
30,000 drones a day. Yeah, and
They
yeah,
could,
and that's just
right.
to feed the world market now.
Mhm.
They own 85% of the market. DJI does. Anything of a drone like the Mavic 3, and better, has enough compute on it to do some basic nav, and targeting. They're they're not implementing that right now, but that's just a software upgrade away. And that's just their surveillance side. There's many more systems, uh, and the
Mhm.
Russians are starting to gain these capabilities as well. They're starting to build their own factories. Uh, so, yeah, it's something the allies need to be well aware of, and need to start building their own capacity. We need to start building our own capacity, not just for Ukraine, but the West as a whole, and the
You
component
talk
parts.
about that all the
Yeah,
time because
the com- yeah,
it's a world you're in. Yeah.
Yeah, the component parts are key. Like you can look at a lot of these drones and they're kind of cool, different pieces to them, but you crack them open, the internal components are vastly the same, and let's say probably 85% or more from China. And that's the new weapon, and it's going to be the new weapon for a long time. And it's going to far surpass these highly expensive, exquisite systems.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Matthew, for your input. And everybody, thank you for joining us again. Remember to go to the link in the description if you'd like to join our cause. We're Technology United for Ukraine. You can donate there and you can join. All right. Thank you, everybody.